Hey there, this is going to be the second part of the laser cutter tutorial in Illustrator. Remember last time we talked about making a shape, using the fill to think about rasterization with all black area, and then using the stroke at 255 red, 0.01 thickness, and then that's going to be what cuts in the laser cutter. Today what I want to show you is how to bring in an image. So I just have some images on my desktop. I'm going to pull one in here. These are pretty simplistic graphic images, and the reason I'm doing that is they're usually the easier images to kind of do what we want to do here. So first thing to know is we wouldn't be able to use this image because if you zero in on this, it's not a vector file. You can see it still is using pixels. So the first thing we need to do is select our image. Once you select it, you'll see you get this kind of dialog box at the top where it says embed, edit original, image trace, blah, blah, blah. When it's not selected, you're not going to have that box. So make sure it's selected. We want this box because we want to use this button right here, image trace. Image trace can get really complex, so we could push the button, or there's this little caret drop down here, and then this can be for more specific and kind of technical image traces. So you can see you can do a lot of colors. It can be a really high fidelity photo. This can just help you get a little bit more complex with your image trace. But basically we're going to select the image, we're going to push image trace, and for this one we'll just try this like basic button. So what it does now is it's created a vector file. So we have no pixels anymore. We now have our vector file, which is exactly what we wanted. So we could put this in to the laser cutter, and it would rasterize this image. But what we also want to do, if you remember, is we might want to cut out. We might want to both rasterize the shape and then, or all the shapes, and then cut out the outline of the thing. So to get to that next level, we have to push the button expand. And when we push expand, what you're going to see is basically Illustrator has outlined all of the shapes or lines in our drawing, right? So if we click on here, you can see everything has been outlined. Now what we need to do, because it's created a lot of lines, is we actually want to select all of these lines. We want to right click and go to ungroup. So by ungrouping, we can now select some of these things individually. This is not the easiest thing to do. Sometimes you just don't get what you want, and it takes some practice to figure out kind of how to use this. The two tools you're going to use here mostly are going to be the selection tool and the direct selection tool. So if you click on the direct selection tool, what that actually allows you to do is select some of these things individually and not as a whole unit, right? So now we can select just these specific lines, and we could manipulate these if we wanted to, right? So we could come in here. You can imagine we could create the outline on this in our red 255 in a thin line, and then we could have the laser cutter actually cut out this shape instead of just rasterizing it, right? But what I want to show you how to do is how to choose this outside silhouette here. We're going to change the stroke color on that to our 255 red. Double click. We're going to go RGB. We've got 250 right now. We need 255, 0, and 0. We're going to say OK. We're going to change the stroke here, just like we did before, to 0.01. And we're going to click OK, and now our flower here is outlined with our red line. So we should get a rasterization where it's black, and it's going to cut out our form here. Now the one thing you might see is you see these red lines that occurred on the side. So we're probably going to want to get rid of those because those are just going to be extra cuts that we don't really want the laser cutter to do. So let's try the direct select tool. Let's come in here and try to see if we can select these. You know, and sometimes you're going to have to click around a little, because right now when I'm clicking on this, it looks like it's selecting my outline on the plant too. So let's now it looks like we're good. So let's delete. Let's delete that. And now we got rid of that red outline that was there, and now we have our raster and our red outline. Just to double check that we got that red outline, you can see it right there. So we were good on that. So let's Command Z. Okay, so now this thing's perfect, right? So we could go File, Save As, make sure it saves as an AI file, and now you have a more complex drawing that's going to rasterize the black. The white will be the original material color, whatever it is, and then the red outline in 0.01, 255 red is going to get cut out. As I said, you could get really specific with this, and you could come in here and be like, okay, cool, I want to cut out this shape, I want to cut out this shape, you know, so you can get really, really detailed in the laser cutter, but you just have to be willing to kind of do the work for that. So what I'd like you to practice is I would like you to practice bringing in some different images. And again, I would start with like black and white images and try to figure out how to, first of all, vectorize them by pushing image trace, expanding your image trace, and then see if you can start to get some of these outlines here. I'm going to go ahead and ungroup these, see what happens. Now this one's a little tricky, I can see, because, and sorry, I'm just going beyond here, but I can see, you see down here at the bottom, since there's no line connecting these, it's wanting to choose all of this, right? So if I do the red outline right now, it's going to cut this part also. So what I would probably do on something like this is I would think like, okay, the black is going to get rasterized, and then I would actually just draw a shape around this, you know, like we did yesterday or last time when we did this, a shape that doesn't have any fill, and then has a RGB 255. And 0.01. You know, so I would basically just draw my own shape around this thing, knowing that now, okay, cool, so the computer's basically going to see the black, which it's going to rasterize, which is all this, and then it's going to see my red outline here. It's going to cut out my shape. Again, you could get really specific with this if you want. If you thought, okay, actually I want to come into all of these areas and cut these out, you could set that up. You would just need to be careful with something like this, because if it cuts out this shape, you're going to lose these two shapes here because there's nothing holding them onto kind of the frame of your material. But some of these would cut out perfect, you know. Okay, so practice the image trace a little bit and see if you can figure out how to like delete some of these like really specific areas or change the outlines with them. And again, remember, it's image trace, expand, ungroup, and then you should be able to come in here with the direct selection tool and choose anything you want very specifically. Okay? All right, have some fun with that.